Hi, I'm Frank Grillo, the managing director of Altamura Distilleries. I've lived in Italy for 2 years, but before that, lived my whole life in the United States. Though I'm of Italian-American descent, my entire career has been in marketing in the US and not making vodka in Italy up until the last year. So the town of Altamura is famous for a lot of things, actually. It's known as the Lioness of Puglia, for some famous military battles it fought, but probably the thing it's most famous for is Pana di Altamura, which is the only bread in the world that's been designated with a PDO. So just like champagne can only be made in Champagne, Pana di Altamura can only be made in the city of Altamura, and it needs to be made using wheat grown in Altamura, one of the neighboring communes. It's actually a very ancient bread. The poet Horace wrote about it in 37 BCE. One of its attributes is it stays fresh for a long time, and so he advised travelers to take several loaves on the journey with them because they'd always have some bread to eat. And that really became the inspiration for our vodka. So when we decided to move to Puglia, I just started cooking Pugliese recipes because I love to cook, and I came across the recipe for Pana di Altamura. Back in the US, I could actually find Altamura flour at Whole Foods, and so I bought some and baked a loaf. Not legitimate because it wasn't baked in Altamura, but still it was a pretty good faux. And it hit me that this loaf of bread, if you boiled it instead of baked it, could be a bottle of vodka, or ultimately gin or whiskey, but vodka is what came to mind. And I was curious why no one was using this very unique wheat in any spirit format. So we did a little research and could find no one doing anything in a distilling world, and talked to some folks who were experts and said, is there a reason that this wheat couldn't be used in making a spirit? The answer came back a resounding no, it'd be a great spirit. And that inspired us to say, this really famous wheat and this really famous bread would be lovely to express in a liquid format instead of a solid format. Take all of the same terroir and uniqueness of the wheat and put it in something that people could drink instead of eat. The reason for vodka is twofold. One, as we were thinking about the mission of kind of expressing the wheat and its terroir, it's a bit of the purest way to do it, right? I mean, we're going to make a gin, and I think gins are lovely, but you wind up adding botanicals. We'll make some whiskey formats, but you wind up adding smoke and wood. And so as the first product that we were going to introduce, it felt right to make it a vodka where we could really just let the terroir and the wheat speak without any other additions from the distilling process. And two is, as you look out on the market, gin is really crowded. We can't make a tequila, and whiskey's a 5-year product. So vodka seemed like the right thing to introduce, to say we were not going to be a Me Too product. We were going to introduce something that really, there weren't a lot of challenger Italian brands of vodka out there at all. So it seemed like the right place to start with using the grain to produce a spirit. We are in the town of Ostuni, which is one of the most important towns in Puglia, certainly from a tourist standpoint. It's the place people come to eat, drink, party. It's got amazing vistas overlooking the water, and certainly a very, very storied history. It's the white city because all of the buildings behind us are painted white and have to be painted white. So it's a really important town here in Puglia. We actually have our distillery building, our first distillery building here, not in Altamura, and the reason for that is we wanted to put a tasting room where people could most closely access it. So it's a really important place for us because this is where most visitors will get an opportunity to experience the brand who are visiting Puglia. Setting up a business in Italy as an American, oh my God, don't do it. You know, it's the two sides of having moved to Italy. It certainly is la dolce vita, and lifestyle here is amazing, but business is challenging. As an American who's never done business in Italy, it's challenging. As an American trying to open a distillery in a world where high ABV distilling is not yet common, all of that was a really interesting learning experience. It took us almost a year to launch the brand from the time we started the process, just because of what it took to really get a business functioning in here in Italy. That, I would say, that was the biggest challenge, just learning and being foreign to the process here. Altamura is the lioness of Puglia. Even though it's the lioness, it is represented by 2 lions on the steps of the cathedral. But there are lots of stories of how it got that name, but the gist of it is it withstood an attack by Saracens during the Holy Roman Empire period here, and for that Frederick designated it the lioness of Puglia. So we wanted to again, because we're really about expressing Altamura in liquid format, we wanted the bottle to do the same thing. So the lion certainly is right from the cathedral and really symbolic of Altamura, and equally the colors are very Pugliese. The story around the colors are, the red is earth, and you guys spent some time here today. It is a very agricultural place where earth is really important. Yellow is sun, finally it's back out, and the green-blue is mare, sea. And so the colors are also very, very representative of Puglia, and we wanted the bottle to convey the provenance of the vodka. So we will introduce our first gin this year. It will be a London Dry, really classic. I have a bias against a lot of Italian gins. They're lovely, but they're not gins. Some of them could really function well as perfume. They tend to be overly botanical, overly perfumed, maybe a single-use product, but not what I think is a traditional gin. I think that's a problem with gin. The standard for gin is so open. You know, you can call a lot of things gin. So we want to produce a really traditional London Dry gin. We've actually experimented already, and that same umami and creaminess that's in the vodka comes across in the gin too. So I think the juxtaposition of a very traditional botanical mix with the background umami and terroir of the vodka will produce a lovely gin. You know, my favorite cocktail is an Altamura martini, and I mean a proper martini. I think I've become a bit of a zealot now. I'm gonna have to wear a tunic or something. You know, when people think they're drinking a martini, I say no. You're probably just drinking cold vodka, or if you're lucky, vodka that got walked past a vermouth bottle, right? But the martini, when it was created, was an amazingly balanced cocktail, right? I mean, in some places you see a 2-to-1 ratio. I think the 1940s 3-to-1 ratio is really proper, with a beautiful dry vermouth like a Noli Prater or a Carpano. And in the style of the American bar at the Savoy, just a dash of orange bitters. For me, it works amazing with the vodka because the vodka has a certain umami and creaminess. It really loves vermouth. And in a drink that is that ratio 3-1 with a little bit of orange bitters, it's just such a lovely drinking experience. I've had people say I've never tasted a martini like that. I'm like, because you've never actually drunk a martini, a proper martini. So I'd say that's my number one choice.